Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentleman for Pennsylvania for yielding the time. And he talked about sanctuary policies, and that's really at the root of what we're talking about here today, the so-called sanctuary policies of President Biden and Governor Kathy Hochul in New York and Mayor Eric Adams, who refuses to pull those sanctuary cities back. These policies have failed, and the American people are paying the consequences. Millions of illegal immigrants have flooded across our borders since President Biden took office, and his administration has refused to even acknowledge the crisis that has unfolded. 2 years ago, it was communities only along our southern border that seem to almost exclusively carry this burden for this self-inflicted humanitarian crisis. Now, that burden is shared by cities and towns and villages as far north as my own state of New York, where communities in my own district, very far from the southern border in upstate New York, have declared a state of emergency as their limited resources are stretched to the breaking point to handle the influx of illegal immigrants. And now here we are, with thousands of migrant families, including children, shivering in tent cities at Floyd Bennett Field in Staten Island in New York City. Mr. Speaker, moving forward, I hope my Democratic colleagues will think twice before accusing House Republicans of cruelty, callousness, or inhumanity when it comes to securing our border and fixing our broken immigration system. Because opening our borders to human traffickers and drug cartels, cramming migrant families into broken down motels in freezing tent cities, and failing to account for 85,000 unaccompanied minors is the textbook definition of cruel, callous, and inhumane. No longer will we allow this administration to divert and squander federal resources, including our public lands, to shore up a crisis of their own making. The solution to this crisis before us is extremely simple. Secure our border and uphold our immigration laws. Stop the invasion that has inundated the southern border and creating a crisis in cities and towns across this country. I strongly support this underlying legislation to end the Biden administration's encampments on America's public lands and hold this administration and those in our states and cities who have promoted so-called sanctuary policies accountable. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.